ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. So I heartily welcome each and every one of you for this series titled as Lead Like Arjuna, based on Bhagavad Gita and Mahabharata. And today we'll look onto the first lesson of the series. And today's topic is Discover Your Leadership Potential, Lessons from Arjuna's Journey. There are different topics that we'll be covering up. Today we'll a little bit focus on personal growth and dealing with personal values and professional challenges or requirements at times, which brings about different kind of dynamics in our life. There is one very important verse, just to set a mood here, in Bhagavad Gita, which defines what is leadership. Yat yat acharati shreshtas tat tad eva taro janha sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. This is Bhagavad Gita chapter 3 verse number 21. Krishna says to Arjuna, Arjuna, lead by an example. So oftentimes leadership brings certain privileges and people get caught up with those privileges. In other words, in gratification. Classic example, go back into the history. Lord Ram and Sugriv had a pact. Ram helped Sugriv, but Sugriv forgot about it once he got his kingdom. And Lakshman had to go back and remind him and chastise him. He was too busy enjoying his life. But that's not what leadership is all about. Leadership is all about, or leadership or life in general is all about living with integrity. So let's take a look at it. Before that, let's set a quick background to this text known as Bhagavad Gita, where this beautiful dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna happened. Arjuna had a question, Krishna offered an answer. Often it is considered an historical text, which is no doubt is an historical text which happened around 5,000 years ago. At times people say, well, being an historical text, are the teachings really relevant today? Of course it's relevant, because the situation, the circumstances for Arjuna may be different than what you and I may face today. But it's all about life's journey and the life's challenges. The basic problems of life remain intact. Doesn't matter if it was 5,000 years ago or today. And we'll get to see from Bhagavad Gita for that. Bhagavad Gita was set up on a situation where there was a fratricidal war between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Pandavas representing Dharma and Kauravas representing Adharma. So oftentimes Bhagavad Gita is considered as a religious textbook, therefore it becomes sectarian for some people, maybe a Hindu religious book and whatnot, but it's not like that. It's not about any religion. We'll take a look at the definition of dharma as given in Bhagavad Gita, because that's a question Arjuna asked to Krishna. What is my dharma? Of course, he won't be asking to Krishna on the battlefield, am I Hindu, Muslim or Sikh? There's more deeper meaning to word dharma. These days, motivational talks, motivational speakers are very famous. So Krishna was the original motivational speaker. And the one who really needed motivation at that point of time was Arjuna. Was no ordinary person. You can consider him of technology, Elon Musk. In politics, maybe Narendra Modi. Like that, the best of the individual. He was the best archer in the world. So he needed some guidance, and we all need guidance for that reason. So let's begin with taking Bhagavad Gita, not only a religious book, but it's primarily a life's guidebook. So oftentimes the question is asked, why should I study Bhagavad Gita? In a very simple way, I would like to reflect on this topic. Of course, despite being an ancient text, its teachings on duty, ethics, and leadership are remarkably applicable in modern times, and best of the individuals have referred it like that. So wisdom of Bhagavad Gita helps in what way? It acts in two ways. As a navigation system, I like to give an example of a Google map. The moment we step out from our house, we take out our smartphone, take our Google map or any GPS, and we enter our destination. What does that GPS do? It finds the shortest route to our destination. 1 second, when you're stuck in a traffic, it finds an alternate route. Similarly, in life's journey, when we are stuck then the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita helps us navigate our life, reach our destination. It finds the shortest route to the destination. It navigates us to the difficulties in our life. And the third thing, which is only proprietary to this ancient wisdom, the science of yoga, the Krishna spoke to Arjuna, not for the first time. This was the second time. Prior to that, Krishna spoke to the sun god Vivaswan, which is explained in Bhagavad Gita itself. So it helps us understand what should be our destination. And of course, as a book of transformation, feeling helpless at the beginning of the dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna, and at the end of it, feeling empowered. And Arjuna rises to the occasion and performed his duty. So, with that as a little introduction, let's begin with our topic for today. So, what is Ya Kurukshetra movement? So, all of you, I hope, will have this much background. Kurukshetra movement refers to that situation where Arjuna was in a fix, in a crisis. Prior coming to Kurukshetra, Arjuna was set on achieving his goal, and that was regaining the kingdom which was rightfully theirs, and the Kauravas were not giving, even despite Pandavas fulfilling the condition of 12 plus 13 years of exile. All the Pandavas knew, everyone knew they were cheated. Not they had genuinely lost the game, they were cheated of everything that they owned, they earned by their hard labor. And despite Krishna going as a peace messenger, Kauravas were not willing to give back what belonged to Pandavas. So Arjuna had prepared all this while. However, he comes on the battlefield and he gets confused. So before we get into the topic of some lessons for us from Arjuna, I would just want all of you for a second just to reflect some moment of crisis that you had to face in your life that you can recall at this point of time. If you have a pen and paper, you can quickly jot it down as we continue our discussion. So quickly reflecting on Arjuna's moment of crisis, this is where we're going to draw some lessons for our today's discussion, short discussion. So Arjuna have walked up to the battlefield, the conches have been blown, the chariots have been drawn, the bows and arrows have been raised, or the weapons have been raised, everything is ready, the war is about to start. And out of a sudden, Arjuna asked Krishna, my dear Krishna, who is acting as a charioteer for Arjuna, please draw my chariot in the middle of the army. And Krishna brought the chariot of Arjuna right in front of Dronacharya, Bhishma Pitama, Kripacharya and others. And as Arjuna saw his relatives, his friends, his beloved great-grandfather, his teacher Dronacharya, Arjuna became confused and he went into emotional turmoil. It's very interesting, which I believe I should highlight here right now at this point of time. Arjuna as such had two teachers. Of course, he had a few more, but two main teachers. One was Dronacharya, another was Krishna, who became his teacher at the battlefield at the most important junction of his life. Dronacharya taught Arjuna action, taught Arjuna proficiency, taught Arjuna skills. However, all of that failed when he needed the most. So the secular education that we get in the world today, they teach us skills, they teach us how to perform our whatever job we have on the hand, probably make us expert in that, we get proficiency in it, just like Dronacharya taught Arjuna, but it does not really solve life's dilemma. When we need the most, none of this will come handy. And here comes Krishna into the picture. So that's a secular education, giving you a certain amount of proficiency to do your job, but really cannot resolve life's turmoil. And then comes spiritual education, which teaches us, the most important thing, teaches us action is taught by Dronacharya, but Krishna taught Arjuna the intention, the values, the principles by which life should be lived. And because of which Arjuna was able to cross over the turmoil that he was faced at the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So yes, we need the material science, which is offered by secular education, but we also need spiritual education offered by Krishna to all of us via the medium of Arjuna in the form of Bhagavad Gita. So let's begin with the first lesson for today. Self-awareness and purpose. It's very interesting. Arjuna is at the battlefield, the war has been declared and announced, and it's just about to happen. And at that point of time, Arjuna takes a moment out from that critical junction for self-reflection. How important it is for all of us as an individuals, maybe some of you as young professionals, or maybe as leaders, in whatever capacity we are, to cultivate self-awareness. In management term, this is called as NIC formula. That is, understanding one's needs, understanding one's interests, understanding one's concerns. How many of you would agree? At times we are living our life, but we don't know where we are headed to, what exactly we want in our life. Even if some people have some goals for them, oftentimes I've done this exercise, we call it a SWOT analysis. When it comes to writing strength, some are able to reflect on their strength, or maybe most of them. But when it comes to reflecting on weakness, I've so many times noticed almost everyone fumbles when it comes about reflecting on one's weakness. So self-awareness and purpose is a very important thing, and that is what Arjuna did, the first thing. And it's very important for all of us as an individual to know our strengths as well as weakness, because it's extremely crucial. So strength for Arjuna was, he was the best of the archer. What was his weakness? His emotional belonging to Dronacharya and Bhishma Pitama. Imagine if Krishna would not have brought Arjuna in that situation right at the beginning of the battlefield, and the battle would have begun. And then if Arjuna would have come face to face with Dronacharya and Bhishma Pitama, and at that point of time he would have dropped the weapon, he would have died on the spot. And Arjuna realized his weakness, and he did not shy away from it. He acknowledges. So he acknowledged his emotional turmoil, and Bhagavad Gita teaches us the importance of aligning our dharma with higher purpose. So that's about secular self-awareness and purpose, understanding one's strength and weakness, and aligning actions with higher purpose. So as we know and document our strength, or boost about our strength to others, once in a while we should also reflect on our weakness. Just the beginning of the year, I guess what could be the better time for all of us to do a little SWOT analysis and try to fix our weakness as we progress through the year. A quick exercise for all of you, you can do that later on. What are my core strengths, and how do they align with the goals that I have set for myself? Moving forward to lesson 2, seeking guidance and mentorship. I cannot emphasize enough how important and crucial it is. And let me give you a quick example for it. Let's see if you agree or not. See, some of us may be engineer, doctor, lawyers, and whatnot. We went through our primary, secondary education. We went through college. Maybe some of us might have done BTech, MTech, PhD, and whatnot. Despite all that, once we finish our education and we go through certain training, it is expected that we have developed certain amount of efficiency, proficiency, and skill and whatnot. Then we are on our own for the rest of the life to deal with our professional life and of course the personal life. However, there is one profession which is entirely different, or unlike the professions that I just named to all of us, to all of you here, and that one profession is sports. How great you become. Maybe you become as good as a batsman as Sachin Tendulkar, you will still have a coach. A coach who is always going to be there to fine-tune your skills, to find out minor, not only major, find out minor mistakes in our steps, and that we follow through and redirect, realign to make us a better person. Kshatriya, like Yudhishthira Maharaj, despite being a king, he still had a coach for himself. When he went to the forest, he had Dhamya Rishi. When he came back from the forest, he always sought guidance from Lord Shri Krishna or Srila Vyasdev for that reason. When they were at Kurukshetra, he always sought guidance from Vidurji or Bhishma Pitamaha. And that's how the Vedic culture was before, where everyone would seek guidance from somebody better than that person. So Gita, or Bhagavad Gita, teaches us something very important, and that is about the value of asking questions and seeking clarity. So one thing that we can learn from Arjuna here, do not hesitate to inquire. We are never too old to ask questions. We are never too old to keep learning. To conclude on this topic, just to remind you, Arjuna was 89-year-old when he sought guidance from Krishna. He was a world-renowned, the best archer. in the world. And that archer is saying, I cannot fight. And how did he approach to Krishna? And he said the following verse. Karpanya dusho pahata svabhava prachami tvam dharma samuda chetaha yashreyasya nishitam bruhitan me shishyasteham sadimam tvam prapannam. In other words, Arjuna is saying, to simplify this verse, because of my weakness, miserliness, because of my weakness, I do not know what to do. I acknowledged my weakness, and hey Krishna, I approach you with all humility. You're not anymore my friend, I accept you as my teacher. Please guide me. And what he is asking guidance for? Prachami tvam dharma samudachetaha. Prachami means prashna puchna. Tvam means unto you. Prachami tvam dharma samuda chetaha means consciousness. Samuda means bewilderment. I've got confused. I don't know what is right or wrong. Yashreyasya nishitam bruhitam. You tell me what is the best. About what? What is my dharma? We'll come to the point of what is my dharma. I just wanted to make one or two points. Today, it is so easy to fall into I know it all trap. How many of you agree we have been in that situation where somebody is trying to tell us this is not the right way to do or this is the right action, and we have ignored the advice as much as like Duryodhana. But can you imagine ever trying assembling a furniture without a guide, or maybe using a new device without checking out the manual or the handout for it? So even the greatest leaders, maybe Yudhishthira, or in this case we are talking about Arjuna, Vyasdev sought guidance from Narada Muni, Viduji sought guidance from Maitri Muni. Everyone needs guidance. So very important point to be noted. Humility is not a weakness. Humility is the greatest strength, but we just need to be careful to whom we express. The person to whom we express, whom we take guidance, we need to be assured that he is our genuine well-wisher. So please remember, guidance amplifies growth. Our coach or mentor can help us see our blind spots and navigate the chaos of leadership. Krishna was Arjuna's personal GPS, and who's your is for us to find out. All right, so Arjuna asks, what is my dharma? Let's quickly reflect on this word dharma. Dharma. So in short, dharma, Sanatan dharma, quite famous these days. Dharma, the Sanskrit word dharma, refers to an eternal identity. Therefore, when Arjuna is asking what is my dharma, he is asking what is my duty. All of us are living entities. We have all studied in our 8th, 9th standard book called as food chain. Every living entity is dependent on another living entity. So we all, at all times, are serving everyone else or somebody, knowingly or unknowingly. Some of you might be surprised thinking that how you and I right now serving. Maybe I may be serving because I'm trying to share with you some wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, but how you as a listener may be serving also. Well, each one of us at this point of time and all the time, we are inhaling oxygen and exhaling carbon dioxide. And that carbon dioxide acts as a survival for the trees and the plants. So by releasing carbon dioxide, of course, do not release too much carbon dioxide, otherwise ozone layer may have a problem. But just a point over here, but just by system we are designed to serve. That is what called as dharma. The meaning of dharma is to serve. Therefore, when Krishna talks about dharma in Bhagavad Gita, he talks about dharma at 3 levels. Let's take a look at it. First, adharma. Second, dharma. Third is paradharma. So what is adharma? Often we call it sinful action, but Krishna defines through Bhagavad Gita, adharma means material irresponsibility or irresponsible action, or when you're not doing your duty, when you're supposed to be doing your duty, that is adharma. So before we can perform our duty, it's very important for us to understand what is my duty. Therefore, I was saying, Bhagavad Gita does not only helps us reach our destination, it not only helps transform us, but also tells us what is our destination. In other words, what is also our duty. What is dharma then? Responsible living, material responsibility. And Arjuna had a duty as a Kshatriya to protect the rights and also to punish the culprit. And Arjuna wanted to run away from his duty. And therefore Krishna told to Arjuna, Yudhyasva Vigata Jara. Hey Arjuna, give up your laziness, get up and fight. People sometimes misunderstand that Krishna promoting violence. It is as much as if your house is robbed and you call the police. Fortunately, once in a while, if in your case, police happen to reach in time and catches the thief, and the police brings the thief to you, and apparently it turns out to be the thief is, let's say, a brother-in-law for that police chief who has come to the house. And the police chief says, oh, this is my brother-in-law. Sometimes people do mistake, let him go. Would you accept that? As a police, he has to perform his duty. He has to punish the culprit because the culprit is his relative. He cannot let it go. That's how it is. And third level of action, which Bhagavad Gita teaches, for that you will require a little in-depth study, called as paradharma, spiritual responsibility, where Krishna establishes we are just not a body, but we are spirit soul. Najayate mriyete va kadachin naya bhutva bhavitva nabhuya Ajo nitya shashvatuyam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. The second chapter, verse number 20. Body dies, body takes birth. We are eternal. We neither take birth nor we die. So that's about a spiritual responsibility. Let's go into the next lesson from Arjuna. Resilience and perseverance. Arjuna was a Kshatriya. First of all, he had to go and live in the forest in exile for 12 long years. If that was not enough, then for 1 year he had to live a life of a eunuch. Can you for a second think about it? How embarrassing it would have been for Arjuna as a Kshatriya? And he had to become a dance teacher to the daughter of the king over there. A Kshatriya, a ruler, the best of the archer, had to do such a kind of a job. What would have been his situation? And not only this, when he comes back onto the battlefield and then he sees his relatives and then he undergoes emotional turmoil. So if you take a look back at Arjuna's life, just reflecting on Arjuna, we can broaden the scope of discussion to Pandavas also, but let's focus on Arjuna. If you look at it, how many challenges, how many difficulties of all kinds, of all nature, threat to their life. And then not threat to their life, then Arjuna becoming a threat to the life of his beloved ones like Dronacharya and Bhishma Pitama. What all he had to go through, yet he persevered through all that. So one of the things which really tested his patience, one of the very first instructions that Krishna gives to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita is Matas Pashastu Kaunteya Shitoshna Sukadukada Agama Paino Nityas Tam Stitikshva Bharata. Hey Arjuna, learn to tolerate. This is the very first instruction Krishna gave to Arjuna. And his tolerance was really tested during the battlefield. 10th day of the war, Arjuna had to kill his dearmost relative, Bhishma Pitamaha. Yet the war didn't end it. Bhishma Pitama thought maybe after my death, after I am not on the battlefield anymore, maybe Duryodhana would get a sense. And he told Duryodhana, this is also time now, if it can happen to me, who has a blessing to be unbeaten, if I can die, if I can collapse on the ground, what will happen to the rest of you? It's still time to reconcile with Yudhishthira. Duryodhana walked away. Arjuna had to face that. And then came the biggest turmoil for him. I believe that's on the 12th day when Arjuna lost his son, the dearmost son, Abhimanyu. Came back from the battlefield, went to his camp. One seat is empty, and that was Abhimanyu. Arjuna was the last one to return that day, and when he came, nobody was speaking in the assembly. And when Arjuna saw that particular seat which belonged to Abhimanyu was empty, Arjuna understood what would have happened to Abhimanyu. He had to tolerate that also. And this was his fear before the war began, that we would lose our relatives and dear one. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us something very important. And the message and the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita allowed Arjuna to continue with all this life's crisis. Karmanevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachan ma karma phalheturbhur matya sangha karmani. Arjuna, do not get attached to your results of your actions. Be detached. And that is so important if you want to maintain some equanimity within your life. It's so important to function with certain amount of detachment. How many of you agree the moment we make a decision, we become emotionally attached to it? And if in case somebody comes and says, no, this is wrong, how affected and offended we become. So Arjuna teaches here, whatever happens, resilience and perseverance is one very vital thing we can learn from Arjuna. And the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita is detachment. Perform your duty with detachment. Let's move forward. A quick tip for all of you: when facing a difficult situation is very important. Do not allow yourself to get completely absorbed into it and not allow that situation to eat away you. Rather, take a step back, reassess, and focus on what you can control and leave what is beyond your control. Let's go to the next lesson quickly. Ethical decision making. So when Arjuna came at the battlefield, there was a crisis between his Kula Dharma and his Kshatriya Dharma. There are two kinds of crises: moral crisis and ethical crisis. Moral crisis means option A is moral, option B is immoral, easy to make a choice. Ethical crisis, where both the options are moral. Now, how do you make a choice? And that is what Arjuna was faced with. So, we are often faced with a challenge when we have to balance personal values, maybe like integrity, with professional responsibilities. I remember I was working for Juniper Networks, so I used to travel across different parts of the world in those days. I was working in America, I was a research scientist, I was leading a team in the field of mobile security, and when we had meetings with the big telecom operators like AT&T, Verizon in India, with the Reliance, Airtel and ASL in those days, then I would often be asked to travel along with the team to go and give a demonstration and all that. So I don't want to go into too much detail, but just to keep it very short and crisp here, often there is not so much risk as it is projected. So in the field of a security, we had to sell a product which our company created. And to sell a product, there has to be a security risk. And because I was one of the instrumental factor in creating the security product for Juniper Networks, the mobile solution in those days back then in 2008, 2009, so I was also given the responsibility to also create the security risk. So I and my team created the solution, and I also created the problem. And then we'll go and give a demonstration saying that, see how the problem exists in the network already, and our solution is the way which can fix the problem. And it was a blatant lie. The problem didn't exist. We created the problem and we showed a solution for it. It was a big challenge for me when it came to balancing my personal values and professional expectations and responsibilities. So it was a question of ethical decision making. So how do you reconcile it? Eventually, a leader has to lead with integrity. Of course, I will leave that for you to decide how you decode that in your situation, but let me come back to Arjuna's life here. So, ethical crisis, two choices, what to be done: Kula Dharma versus Kshatriya Dharma. So, how do Arjuna reconcile? Now, Kula Dharma means, my elders are there, I'm supposed to protect them, not kill them. That's sinful. And Kshatriya Dharma means I need to punish the culprit. So do I punish the culprit, Duryodhan and party, and my worshipable elders and my guru have joined the party of Duryodhan, so they also become the culprit. So do I protect them or do I kill them? Now both were correct. How do you reconcile? And that was a big bottleneck for Arjuna, and therefore wisdom of Bhagavad Gita helped Arjuna rise above. So here the point I want to make here is, I already said the point before, importance of mentor and coach. They can help us see the nuances of life and help us navigate through complexities. And if in case you're confused about how do I find a coach for my life, like I was confused once upon a time when I was a college student back in those days in America, I found great solace in Bhagavad Gita. I would urge you, please give one try reading Bhagavad Gita. Moving forward to the next lesson, I believe I already emphasized and explained that leadership is not about gratification but greater contribution. Leadership is not about dominating but elevating others. With that as an idea, we function. Next lesson is balancing emotions and logic. Arjuna was in utter turmoil. Sanjay says in second chapter, verse number 1, Arjuna had tears rolling down his cheeks. The Gandiva has slipped from his bow. He has collapsed on the chariot. He was so much emotionally disturbed. So some of you, or many of you might have heard the word EQ, emotional quotient. What is this EQ? EQ allows one, it kind of creates an adaptability and also allows one to become more sensitive to others. Allows one just to, for a second, let go of one's own fear and worries and relate with others, and most importantly, hear other opinions. So despite he being caught between his emotions and his logic, well, they have committed crime, they need to be punished. And being caught between this, the dilemma of balancing emotions and logic, here Arjuna shows a great resilience, a great skill in the context of EQ. And what is that? Despite in this fixed and challenging situation, Arjuna still could maintain his great listening skills. It is so important in today's day and time. If not we become great, at least we should do something better in our listening ability. All the crises, how many of you have ever complained that the problems that are happening around is just because of communication issues? Yes or no? Please raise your hand if you agree with that. And why communication gap? Because somebody is not listening well. Well, we can learn that from Arjuna. Arjuna's interaction with Krishna on the battlefield showcases his emotional intelligence. He demonstrated self-awareness by acknowledging his inner turmoil and weakness, and in that situation he sought guidance, and he was able to hear Krishna. Not only able to hear Krishna, he heard Krishna attentively, and therefore he could ask thoughtful question back to Krishna. So understand your own emotions and understands others' emotions by lending your ear, by hearing attentively. So as a leader, it is very crucial for us to manage our emotions, or to learn the art of managing our emotions, particularly in high pressure situations. And understanding and connecting with our team's emotions can significantly help us progress. So a quick exercise for this lesson. Practice active listening in your next team meeting. Pay attention to not just words but also tone and body language. So next lesson is continuous learning and skill development. Importance of ongoing self-improvement. Arjuna teaches that from his life, from early days, how he became a best archer. One day he was having a dinner in the night, suddenly the wind blew and the lamp went off and it was utter dark, and he continued to eat. And when he was eating, suddenly an idea popped in his head. If I can continue to eat in the dark, why can't I continue to practice in the darkness? And that's how from that day onwards he stopped sleeping, and the whole night he would practice archery. And this was noted by Dronacharya, and that's how Arjuna became Dronacharya's favorite student, and of course the best of the archer, because he had the zeal and urge to learn and to grow. Similarly, in the rapidly changing environment, I believe continuous learning is even more important than ever before. So here, Bhagavad Gita encourages karmanevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachan ma karma phal hetu brahmati sangha karmani. This verse, I just spoke of one point prior to it. This actually is the verse which teaches us art of smart work. So through this verse, Krishna is teaching us when we perform our duty, we should do it with full responsibility. We should do it with full concentration. When we do something, we should put our best to it. And that's how we grow, that's how we excel. In other words, next time when it is up for learning new skill for you, challenge yourself. Don't take it lightly, but challenge yourself, challenge your laziness, and fight your lower nature to adapt yourself to new challenges and grow. Another thing that we can learn from Arjuna here, not only he was adept in learning new skills, he showed right at the battlefield of Kurukshetra when he was confused. He was willing to hear Krishna's word of advice. And as you go through the pages of Bhagavad Gita, he not only asked questions pertaining to what is my dharma, eventually he went on asking various other questions, which showed his eagerness to learn, despite being such a man of caliber and also such an elderly man in that way. So it shows that how leaders must embrace continuous learning to stay relevant, and what to speak of those who are only young professionals. So take away, stay curious. Growth begins where comfort ends. This is really just a beginning. When you go through the pages of Bhagavad Gita, we learn a lot, many important vital lessons. So to conclude with, what is your leadership potential? To inspire people, to empower people, to lead the change. And are you able to inspire people to join you in your vision? So remember, leadership is not just about position, but about influence and, very important, personal growth. So to conclude with, secular education that we've gone through have taught us proficiency, skills, and maybe efficiency on what you do, like Dronacharya taught to Arjuna. But spiritual education teaches us intentions behind every action, teaches us values and principles by which we should perform an action. And that was taught by Krishna to Arjuna. Despite Arjuna having all the skills, yet he could not really face the most crucial battle of his life. With that, I'll pause here. Thank you for your kind attention. Hare Krishna.